Hello, my name is Michael Yates, and this is my ETEC 540 assignment number 4, titled The Evolution of the Presentation. So I'm going to look at a brief history of the presentation, and then I'm going to look at how it's changed over the last few decades. And then I'm going to give you some concluding thoughts and future predictions. So let's begin. So the history of the presentation is very similar to that of the history of text, because obviously they are very well related. Prior to, let's say, the 60s, you're going to get more along the lines of completely and utterly oral presentations. But in the 1960s, the overhead projector was invented, which completely changed how presentations were done. Then, in 1965, the slide projector was invented, and a little bit later on, the first audience response systems were created. They're actually used for movie theaters, but we could use them for presentations as well. So fast forward, and you'll get the first computer-based presentation software, but this is not what you think it is. It's not going to look anything like what we're currently used to. And the first digital projectors were invented. Again, these were 70-pound monstrous beasts, so again, not what we think they were. Fast forward to Microsoft PowerPoint 3.0 being released, and this is more along the lines of what we're used to seeing as a presentation software, like slides, images, graphs, that kind of thing. 2004, we had our online web conferencing, so we no longer had to be in the same building to present to each other. These were Citrix servers running GoToMeetings. It was actually a pretty neat little software. I remember using it. 2009, we get away from application-based presentation softwares and we go online to the more rich HTML environment with, say, Google Slides being released. And then, this is an estimated date, but the first software/web-based audience response systems were released, and I'm going to look at Zeetings because that's one that's free for educators and an absolutely amazing way to improve your PDs and even classroom instruction. What's the future going to hold? I don't know. Maybe we'll be doing them in virtual reality. So, let's look here. Before, let's say, 1992 or so, you're going to have paper-based presentations. You're gonna have a guy standing in front of a crowd and have some kind of a magic marker and probably scribbling on a piece of paper. Maybe he has some printed out graphs, and he's got paper handouts, or if it's in a lesser environment like maybe a school, I remember doing these, having poster boards and having to put pictures on it and writing text on it, not even printing it out from a computer because dot matrix printers were quite expensive back then. And it was more manual. Now, if you were in a company, you might have had an overhead projector, or if you were a teacher in the 1980s, you might have one of these as well, or a slide projector, which were quite interesting. So then you had transparencies and those lovely little pictures. But again, I would consider this to be very manual based, not digital. They were very cemented, and they didn't change once you've done them. You've done them, unless you did it in the erasable marker and ink and just redid it on those overhead slides. But again, not very high tech. So we get into our little golden age where teachers are starting to have PowerPoint presentations, and it's more digital projectors. So you had your PowerPoint, you could embed your pictures, your video, and your audio, but it wasn't fluid. It was more, again, pretty static. So you could get your videos from Dailymotion, Google Videos, YouTube, and embed it into your presentation. But again, it is static in a way because what happens, like I remember seeing so many of these presentations where the person's frantically clicking on something because their link is dead. So they didn't actually embed it in the PowerPoint that they're using. They tried to create a link to a YouTube that no longer exists, and then now they're sweating and frantic. And again, you could embed objects in your presentations, but again, static, not living, not changing. You could do PDF documents, XLS documents, any other kind of documents, Word, Excel, whatever. So let's get to where we currently are, which is I'm going to call the golden age of presentations, because now, like prior to 2005, 6, I really never had seen an audience response system like to poll people. And if it was there, it would be like one of those smart clicker type things that Smartboard released, and they're pretty clunky, hard to install, and didn't always work. So now what we got is this lovely green area, the future. So now it's not just we're digitally projecting on the screen, we also are using websites. And the beauty of using websites is now we're in an HTML environment. So instead of just doing simple screencasts or putting the YouTube in the PowerPoint, we can embed content in them. So we could have any number of things. We could have a Twitter feed. We could have a voice threaded. We could have a Canva, which is a very beautiful, pretty way of creating published documents, or like publisher documents. We could have a Google form in there. We could have a Padlet. We could have a WordPress. We're creating this HTML-rich environment in our presentations to engage our audience. Also, we have the ability to poll our audience now with audience response systems. So you could do the old thumbs up, you can rank, you can multiple choice, you could text, you can scale, word count, all in real time, all right on the screen, all immensely more immersive than the static presentation. Then you can survey your audience, either with something embedded in whatever software you're using, or whatever website you're using, or a Google form. And then you're getting instant feedback to your presentation. So honestly, this is something that's, when you look at the presentation, it went from something extremely oral into something paper-based, into something digital, and then into something embedded. So everything was in that rich HTML environment now, and we just get so much more interactive ability. So it's just like paper. Like our paper, it's just like text, because it went from boring old word processors or boring old pieces of paper to word processors, now to the rich HTML environment. And I also find it very funny that like the word processor basically copied print. Like even somebody posted Ted Nelson's talk about how he didn't want that. He basically wanted it to be like a completely transparent link-based system for hypertext. But what did they do? They just did what they were comfortable with. And that's what's happened with the presentation. We were basically just following a slide projector. One square, go to the next one, click, 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 click. So now we're actually getting in this nice, beautiful golden age where we can do more with it. So personally, I find that extremely exciting, and I hope it continues on this way. So thank you for listening. Goodbye.